easy do-it-yourself wall, door, or window hanging Christmas gnome ornament. These ornaments are high gloss and designed to hold up to winter weather. So this project is pretty simple. We're going to start with some thin plywood. This is just 1/4-inch stuff that I got from Home Depot. I just kind of sketched out the gnome with a pen or pencil, and then I'm just using a jigsaw to cut out the outline. You could also do this with a pin saw if you wanted. You don't have to be super accurate. We're going to really leave it up to your own artistic ability. But cutting it out, very simple. In addition to cutting out the outline of the gnome itself, I am also going to cut out the sign, the rim of the hat, the little ball at the end of the hat, and hands. And I'll show you how all these go together. And the plan here is that I'm going to paint those separately, and then I'll glue them onto the gnome outline. And that should end up being a pretty nice little door hanger. I'm going to use an angle grinder with a flap sanding wheel just to add a little bit of texture to the beard. This is very simple. And if you're just going to paint this, you'll really see those texture lines. I went an extra step with this one, and I coated it all with epoxy, which kind of hides some of that texture, but I'm doing it anyway. I've also added a little bit of texture to the rim of the hat. Same thing, angle grinder with a flap sanding wheel. So now the beard has texture. I left the texture out of where I'm going to glue the sign on. I added a little bit of texture to the little cotton ball at the end of the hat. And I'm going to use some spacers in order to glue the hands on to hold the sign. So now I'm just going to use spray paint. I spray painted the entire beard white, making sure to get all the edges. I also spray painted the sign white, and then I used just painter's tape, and then I cut out letters that said Merry Christmas, and I painted over that with red. Of course, I waited for the white paint to dry. And then once that's dry, I can just peel that painter's tape, and that exposes the white lettering underneath. Again, I used a little bit of painter's tape just to mask off the hat area, and I sprayed that red. I'm going to glue all the components on. It doesn't really matter what kind of glue you use. I just had a little bit of epoxy. I'm going to glue the sign. And the reason I say it doesn't really matter that much is because I'm going to coat this with a clear epoxy coating or clear resin coating. That's really going to hold everything together permanently. So whatever glue I'm using or whatever glue you use only has to hold it together until we do that final coat. And these are the hands or mittens. And this is the final coat. Now I'm using a product from TotalBoat.com called their MakerPoxy. It's a 2-part epoxy that you mix together, slowly for 5 minutes. I poured it on, and then I just used a disposable paintbrush just to paint it out. In order to get all of the little bubbles out of the mix, after it's painted out and spread out, I'm going to go back over it with a little butane torch. And that just heats up the resin a little bit, allows it to become a little bit thinner, and therefore the bubbles reach the surface and dissipate. And you just end up with a much clearer, high gloss finish by using that torch. I also added a little bit of sprinkles while the resin was still wet. You do have to let that dry for at least 24 hours. I actually waited 48. And then this is the finished product. Very nice door, wall, or window hanging Christmas ornament. Please check us out on the web at DIYEasyCrafts.com.